This week's episode is sponsored by Patreon supporter El Corona, who takes us back to the Japanese side of the Transformers world with their request for the basics on the first female Transformer toy ever released. Say bonjour to MINERVA. The original MINERVA toy was released exclusively in the Japanese version of the Transformers toy line in 1988. She was an Autobot who transformed into a Porsche emergency medical vehicle, and as such was named after the Roman goddess of medicine, though her name was mistranslated on the toy's packaging as MINERVA, and you do still sometimes see that incorrect spelling used to refer to her even today. MINERVA was a recolor of the male Autobot Nightbeat, who was released in Hasbro markets the same year. The toys were headmasters, Transformers whose heads disconnected and converted into minifigures that could sit in their vehicle mode cockpits. But the big difference between the two was that while Nightbeat was a Transformer bonded to a tiny partner named Muzzle, in MINERVA's case, the minifigure was MINERVA herself. She was actually a human being who connected to and controlled a lifeless Transformer body called a transtector. Writer Masumi Kaneda was responsible for reinventing Nightbeat into MINERVA, and characterized her as a kind and beautiful teenage girl from the European Republic of Montparta. Her father was the country's ambassador to Japan, while her mother was from France, and it was from her that MINERVA had inherited her looks and her grace, making her a talented dancer and gymnast who every boy had a crush on. The story of how this human girl became a headmaster was told in the Japanese original animated series Super God Master Force. MINERVA befriended the Autobots when her family moved to Japan for her father's work, and the heroic robots saved the airliner on which they were flying from a Decepticon attack. She and the Autobots' other human allies, Japanese boy Shuta Go and Southeast Asian island prince Cab, all wanted to join the fight against the Decepticons, so the Autobots provided them with Headmaster technology. Using technological bracelets called Master Braces, they could summon armoured suits that enhanced their physical abilities and allowed them to combine with transtectors, essentially becoming Transformers themselves. Together called the Headmaster Juniors, the trio's primary function was rescue operations, with MINERVA serving as a battlefield medic. Though she was initially a reluctant fighter, the cruelty of the Decepticons ignited a righteous anger in MINERVA that made her quick to act when others were in danger, whether using her transtector or working with Shuta and Cab to pilot the Autobot battle drone, God Bomber. But it was MINERVA's gentle nature that was her greatest asset, best exemplified when the Autobots captured the Decepticon Headmaster Jr. Cancer, and the kindness MINERVA showed him while he was their prisoner ultimately wound up convincing him he was on the wrong side. At the end of the series, MINERVA and the other humans were separated from their transtectors, and the robots were brought to life as true Transformers. MINERVA's now-living transtector then returned for a guest appearance in the 1989 series Transformers Victory, helping scientists Perceptor and Wheeljack repair and rebuild the wounded Autobot commander, Jinrai. While other female Transformer characters had appeared in cartoons before her, MINERVA was the first female Transformer toy, ensuring her a memorable place in Transformers history. She's remained a popular character in her native Japan, with assorted merchandise of her like PVC figurines, model kits, and action figures being released in the 21st century, backed up by a handful of cameo appearances in various manga. That said, no actual transforming toys of her would be released for quite a while, but in 2006, a special DVD-exclusive recolor of the Decepticon speedboat Thunderblast did pay homage to her colour scheme. MINERVA also became pretty well known to English-speaking fans right from the early days of online fandom, largely for being such a drastic reinterpretation of Nightbeat, a character made popular by the Marvel Transformers comic book. This international fame has resulted in her also appearing in several English-language series, beginning in 2008 with a story that was actually built around her connection to Nightbeat. This year, the Transformers Collectors Club released a new figure of Nightbeat that came packaged with a comic book. The comic was set in the world of the Marvel series and introduced Minerva into that universe, reimagining her as a major in the Japanese self-defense force who was involved in a military experiment to create human-controlled Transformer mecha out of salvaged Cybertronian parts. The experiment was a failure, but somehow forged a psychic link between Minerva and Nightbeat, compelling her to join him on his adventures in space, where she began a romantic relationship with his partner Muzzle. A Transformers animated version of Minerva was introduced in 2011 by official convention BotCon. The first new transforming toy of the character since the original, she was a recolor of Animated RC, available only through the convention's customization class, which participants had to build and paint themselves. Instead of a human headmaster, Animated Minerva was an actual transformer from Cybertron, though in reference to the original Master Force character, she was said to have befriended a French-Canadian girl when she came to Earth. She was characterized as an idealistic young medic, a little too invested in her patients, who was determined to become the apprentice of famous Autobot medic Ratchet. In 2017, a transforming Headmaster minifigure of Minerva was released in Japan's Transformers Legends toy line. Available only in a box set with new toys of Jinrai, Godbomber, and Cab, the figure didn't come with a transtector of its own, but could attach to any of the larger Headmaster figures in the series. In the run-up to this toy's release, Minerva joined the cast of the tie-in Legends manga, which continued her story after the events of the Master Force cartoon, and saw her, Cab, and Shuta regain their Headmaster powers when the Autobots gave them new Master Braces. The series also introduced its own version of Nightbeat, and had a little fun with the character's connection to Minerva. Instead of being depicted as a Cybertronian like in English media, Legends Nightbeat was Minerva's evil doppelganger from an alternate universe, a human female detective working with the Decepticons to crack the secrets of Master Brace technology. A new full-size Minerva toy was released in the Transformers Legacy line in 2022, a retool and recolor of that series' Elita 1 figure, which, like the animated figure before her, wasn't a Headmaster, but a true Cybertronian Transformer. This toy led to Minerva being featured in the IDW Publishing comic book miniseries Tread and Circuits, which was actually published in 2021 before the toy was even announced. In IDW's universe, Minerva served as medic for the Autobot Covert Special Operations team, the Wreckers. The series followed the team as they investigated a plot by the Decepticon terrorist group Mayhem to install their agent Knockout as ruler of the planet Velocitron. But unfortunately, the mission went badly for Minerva when Mayhem framed her for trying to assassinate Knockout, and the story ended with her being sentenced to prison for the crime. It might have had a grim ending, but this series has been Minerva's biggest role in English language media yet. Further proof that she's far more than just a foreign recolor of Nightbeat, but a unique character who represents a key milestone in Transformers history with a distinct legacy all her own. And those are the basics on Minerva. Thanks to El Corona for sponsoring this episode. Where did you first encounter this character? Let me know in the comments. For more international Transformers history and lore like this, be sure to subscribe and check out my archive of videos. Plus, get early access to new episodes by signing up on Patreon.